Well, good afternoon, cowboys, cowgirls, and outlaws. Welcome to another episode of Coffee with Slick Sixguns. We are going to be talking about something pretty interesting today, and it is another pocket pistol, so stay tuned. Make sure that you guys go ahead and grab your coffee. We're going to go ahead and get started, but in the comments section, let me know what you guys are drinking. I always like to know that. But let's go ahead and get started. Cheers. So, for those of you guys who have been following me for a while, you'll know that on my episode when I talk about our coffee times, it's basically a chance for me to get to know you and vice versa. But not only that, but I'm also kind of previewing the firearms for you. In other words, these are new firearms that I'm getting, and this is kind of their first look and first impression. So what we're going to be doing is we are actually going to be... I'm going to tell you about I'm going to show you the revolver, sorry. I'm going to show you the weapon so you can see it in its entirety, front and back, and just kind of get a general impression of what it looks like, how beautiful it is, or vice versa, how ugly it is. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about why I got it. I'm going to also tell you how much I paid for it, because you never know, someone is probably going to be interested at some point in buying these types of guns, and it's kind of nice to know what you're getting into and what price point you can kind of expect. Don't go by me 100% on that, because sometimes I'm able to get pretty good deals, but you know, you can always research that. But I will tell you at least what I got for it, you know, just in case you guys might want to know what you might be looking at. Anyway, you know, and I'll give you my first impressions of it as well, and I will also tell you what I'm planning on using it for. So we'll kind of cover all those bases. So before I do that, let's go ahead and show you the weapon itself. This is a safety hammer double action made by H&R. It is a safety hammer because it is double action only. There is no single action capability on this weapon, so for those of you who were looking for that, that's going to be somewhere else. It is unloaded. You can see, hopefully, I'm not going to aim it at my face here, but you guys can look in the cylinder and you can see there are no rounds in the chamber. So I'm not going to give you the history of these things, but we'll kind of talk about them, you know, just in general. So let's go ahead and show you this revolver. It's a nice little, it's almost like a, you know, kind of a Smith & Wesson grip, kind of something that's mixed between a plow handle and a bird's head. You know, if those of you in the comment section want to tell me exactly what the grip is, you can let me know. I'm not going to, you know, say what it is, because I'm just kind of showcasing it. It's got some nice, basically what it looks like is early plastic grips. Right here, these are not wood and they are not rubber or anything like that. So, you know, similar to the gutta percha that you would find on things like the first Colts, you know, when they came out with those, even though, you know, they originally came out with wood but then switched over to kind of a plastic rubbery type. It's very similar to, I would say, a Smith & Wesson double action revolver. This kind of falls into the category of the pocket guns. It is nickel plated, so you kind of see that it's all nickel plated. You know, and my understanding is that some of them might have come with blued trigger guards and blued triggers. Heard of that, haven't seen it. So you'll see that the cylinder itself is rather small. It is a 5-shot cylinder right there. It has a octagonal barrel, and the barrel length, I'm not sure on it, but it's roughly, I want to say, 2.5 to 3 inches. So definitely something for pocket carry. The front sight has an integral rear sight in the back here. So, you know, my understanding is that it's relatively, looking at it, it's relatively easy to pick it up. You know, kind of a half, you got a half moon front sight there. And then you also got your barrel pin or your cylinder pin, whatever you want to call it, that is held in by a spring latch located right here on the bottom. As I said, the trigger is double action only, and the hammer is considered the safety hammer, so there is no hammer spur, hence the reason why it would be considered a kind of a safety hammer, because if you put it in your pocket, it's not going to cock the weapon by being snagged on any clothing. Unlike the lemon squeezer, there is no squeezing grip here, no squeezing action, so the hammer being bobbed is or removed, the hammer spur being removed is the safety. You'll notice that the cylinder spins freely. My understanding is that that is what it was designed to do, so it is not broken. It does have notches in it, so it does have a safety notch, ironically. So like if I cock it just a little bit, it's going to fall into the safety notch. Yes, you can still spin the cylinder, and so I guess, you know, if you wanted to, you could, don't go by me, but you could carry this thing all chambers loaded, or you could carry it with one empty chamber. And then after that, you can go to the full cock position. I'm not going to actually fire this thing, but I will go ahead and drop the hammer there. So, just kind of a nice looking revolver here. The trigger is very wide, you know, so similar to that of the Smith & Wessons, but I'll say it's actually a little wider. I think that's pretty neat, but we'll talk about that later. So with this revolver, and let me kind of tell you about why I got it. Well, first off, I got it because I do like pocket pistols. I think pocket pistols are kind of neat. This is something to add to the collection. I do have a Smith & Wesson. For those of you guys who have been following the channel, it is a lemon squeezer. You know, they do have Iver Johnson's as well. I do have an Iver Johnson sitting in the safe right now. It is not together. It is actually in pieces, hence the reason why it has not been on the channel. And then you also have H&R, which is another one. It created pocket pistols. Remington, of course, created pocket pistols. So, you know, but as far as double actions are concerned, right now, those are the three companies that I have. I'm sure there are other companies out there. I'm not going to name them just because I don't want to be wrong. But I am going to say that at least I have three companies double actions. And so this was another nice one to add to the collection. And also potentially wanted to use it as a carry gun. You know, my understanding is that these are a little bit cheaper than the Smith & Wessons. So hence the reason why you might consider it what's commonly called a Saturday night special. You know, those are lower quality, cheaper pocket handguns, or handguns that can be used for self-defense. You know, typically we're talking revolver types here, just because of the metal quality that they were made out of and the manufacturing process. They were just generally overall cheaper. So this could be considered potentially one of them. But, you know, this is something that I thought about actually carrying, you know, as a backup gun to what I have. Just kind of neat. So, you know, that's kind of why I got it. I was able to get it from a friend of mine. It was kind of part of a multi-gun purchase that I was able to get a deal with him from. If you are watching, thank you for letting me do that deal with you. Thank you for letting me have this for the channel. I'm really excited. So, you know, without being too specific, I can tell you that I got this gun for under $100. So, you know, if you can find something like this for a price point like that, I'd say go for it. Because I don't know what they really, you know, go for on the open market or on the used market. But if you can find someone who is going to sell it to you at a reasonable price, I'd say under $100 is more than reasonable. Especially considering kind of the history of these revolvers. I know that they were made in the 1880s and onward, all the way up until roughly 1950. There were different variations and models, you know, and that can deal with from where the pin placement is to also the type and length of barrel. from round to octagonal, and you can see this is an octagonal barrel. This one currently does not have a marking for the caliber, but I'm going to assume at this point, just looking at it, I'm going to tell you I think it's a 38. More than likely it's a 38 Smith & Wesson, not a 38 Colt or anything like that. And my understanding is that they also, you had the transitional era since it was made in since this type was made in the 1880s and onward. They made it through that transitional era in which you had smokeless and black powder. And so my understanding is based on the serial number, you can fire one or the other, or you can only fire or you can fire only black powder. So anyway, this is just something that is kind of neat. But, you know, that's kind of just one of the things I got on it. You know, I will have another one to show you here in a little bit, but we'll go ahead and get into this anyway. Talking about kind of just my first impressions of this revolver. First off, this is, you know, as I said, I wanted to collect some pocket guns, and this is definitely an Old West pocket pistol, just a little bit cheaper than, say, the Smith & Wessons. You know, and I do like the nickel finish. For those of you who have been following this channel for any length of time, you'll notice that I love nickel finish guns. So the nickel finish I think is great. It definitely has some wear on it, but it's not too bad. I have not checked the bore, but I'm not going to do that here. I don't think it's that bad. I think this was rarely fired, to be honest with you. You know, so nickel finish is always a cool thing to have. This is the first one I've had that it has a hammer that has no spur. Usually that's something that I see in the more modern revolvers. You know, things like the Kimbers and all that, they're coming out with, you know, the no snag hammers. I'm not saying that's anything not, you know, obviously that's something that is not new, and definitely did exist in the Old West. So, you know, just kind of something that's a little interesting there. I do like the trigger on it. I like how wide it is. It literally allows you to just get up close and personal. Put your finger all the way in there. You don't have to, you know, it's not for target practice. It's not something that I plan on using for precision shooting. It was meant for up close and personal, so you can get a good grip on this gun and just squeeze that trigger and just unload into whatever it is that is trying to attack you. What else? I do like how short the barrel is. The caliber itself being 38. I have fired 32 Smith & Wesson, and my experience with 32 Smith & Wesson is that it is relatively anemic. But that's, you know, that just has to go with the fact of, you know, they did have a bigger caliber of 38. I have not actually fired 38 Smith & Wesson, so I'll let you know what that is like. But I would imagine that it's not going to be, you know, screaming out the barrel, especially since it's only a 2-inch, you know, and it is a revolver. So obviously it's not a 44. It's not what you would consider like the old belly guns where they cut down 1860 armies or anything like that and made them sheriff's models, or the Colt single action armies and did the same thing. But you know, just it is something that, you know, has a practical use. Obviously, there were other pocket pistols out there that did have larger calibers, although my understanding is that they were mostly rimfire. Specifically, when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about the Remington 1895 models, the 2-shot Derringers. Those were typically in 41 caliber. So to see something in 38 as a pocket gun is still considered pretty, in my opinion, I would say pretty formidable. You know, definitely could do the job across a card table if that's what you needed, or if you, you know, were getting held up, you know, with a gun to your head. So I think that's fine. You know, I like the fact that it is actually double action only. I like the fact that it kind of has that extra peace of mind of safety, that I know that I'm not going to get a snag on a piece of clothing. It's just going to sit in my pocket, and that's specifically what I think these things were designed for, to sit in a deep pocket and just sit there and wait for you to pull it out. I do like the octagonal barrel. I think that's kind of neat. Octagonal barrels are just classier to me. The grips, nothing to write home about on that one as far as my first impression is concerned. The trigger pull, I don't know exactly what the poundage is. We'll get into that in a later video. As far as what I don't like about this gun, well, there's really not much to say. I would say that probably the takedown, the unloading process might be difficult. I'll also say that, even though this is I keep playing, and you guys see it, it's almost like my own little fidget spinner here. I'm playing with the cylinder. And my understanding is that some people had the complaint of this being able to, you could load rounds in relatively easily because there is no loading gate. You literally just have two pieces of metal that, I guess if you were to offset it, you didn't have to worry about that. But I will say that that is something that is might become an issue. If might at least become an issue at first. However, if you look at the mechanics of the revolver, you'll see that if you have a hammer down on an empty chamber, and because the rim of the cartridge is going to stick out the back, it should catch on the firing pin if it's trying to rotate either way. So that remains to be seen. That is something that I'm going to test. I'd say right now, of my first impression of that, I think that's a negative, but there's a reason that they did it. So whether that reason is for faster loading and unloading remains to be seen, but is it a weakness of the revolver? So we'll have to get into that. I think that'll be interesting. Aesthetically, it's all right looking. I don't think it's as pretty as a Smith & Wesson, but then again, it's more about functionality and does it actually do its job that it was designed to do? So there you go. There's my first impressions, and thank you for enjoying some coffee with me. I'll see you in the next one.